Welcome to Cook Let's Do This. Today I am making vegan pancakes. For this recipe we will use 1.5 cups of flour. I'm using all-purpose flour. You could use 1 cup of all-purpose and 1/2 cup of whole wheat if you want. That would make it a little bit healthier. We're also going to use 2 tablespoons of baking powder. And next, about 1/4 teaspoon of salt. I'm going to use sea salt. You could use whatever. And 1/4 teaspoon of ground cinnamon. You could definitely use pre-ground. I like the taste and flavor of freshly ground, so I'm going to go ahead and grind some right here, right now. And after our cinnamon, then we'll add 1.5 cups of almond milk. You could substitute something else. You could use rice milk or soy milk. I happen to like the taste of almond milk the best, so I'm using that, but take your pick. And we'll also use about 1 tablespoon of olive oil and 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. And about 1/2 cup of pecans and 1/2 cup of blueberries. And we're now ready to mix it. And before it's totally completely mixed, I'll go ahead and get the skillet turned on. I'm going to use cast iron. And I'm going to use somewhere between low and medium. Not quite medium heat, but hotter than low. So while that's getting warmed up, I will finish mixing these. And then we'll coat the skillet with just a little bit of olive oil. And then pour in some batter. Okay, so pour in, I'm using about, maybe 1.5, 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Mix that around. If you wanted to make it easier, you could pour this batter into a measuring cup or something like that, and it would be maybe, you might find it a little easier to pour into your skillet. I'm just going to pour it right out of this mixing bowl. But do whatever you think is easiest. You don't want to make them too big, be a little bit too hard to handle. And probably going to have that on there for about 1 to 2 minutes. Once it starts bubbling, then you got to think about starting to flip it. Now, you could do substitutions with this, like I talked about, different types of milk, whether it's almond or rice or soy milk. I've also added pecans and blueberries. Maybe you want to leave out the blueberries. Maybe you want to leave out the pecans. The recipe still works with the same ingredient amounts, whether you add the berries, the pecans, or not. And so it's been cooking for about 1 minute now. It's starting to kind of fluff up and get bigger. And the next thing we'd expect to see is some bubbles to start to form on the top. And there's one. So once you get a decent amount of bubbles, then you got to start thinking about flipping it. But you want to make sure it's fully cooked on the bottom. So what we can start to do is just kind of work our way around, and you'll get kind of a feel for it, and it still feels a little bit soggy, so I'm not going to think about flipping it just yet. We're going to wait for it to bubble a little bit more. Now this is why you don't want to use too high a heat. If you're using too high of heat, you're going to get it black on the bottom in order to get it cooked in the middle. So be a little bit patient, don't use too high a heat, and it'll cook all the way through, but it won't be black on one side, or both for that matter. And we're still a little soggy, so we still got to wait a little bit. Otherwise it's going to come apart when we try to flip it. Okay, so now we've flipped it, and we're going to leave it for a couple of minutes on this side as well. So it looks good. It's not black, but it's kind of browned on the bottom. And now the trick is to leave it on this bottom side so that it's cooked in the middle on the inside. Sometimes when you take it off, you flip it over, you look on both sides, and they're both cooked on the outside. And then when you get to the center, the middle of it inside, it's not quite cooked. So there's a fine line. But we'll leave it on for a while and make sure that it gets cooked in the middle. And then when we're finished, we'll add a little maple syrup. And when I say maple syrup, I'm not talking about Aunt Jemima, some high fructose corn syrup garbage masquerading as maple syrup. I'm talking the stuff from a tree, the real stuff. It'll taste good and it'll be good for you. So it really only took me about a minute or two to mix up all the ingredients, and it's probably going to take us about 4 or 5 minutes to cook this. And in terms of batter, there's enough batter to make 2 or 3 more the same size as this one. Depending upon how hungry you are, you might just eat one this size, you might eat 2. So this serving size would realistically feed 2 people. And if you wanted to get them finished at the same time, if you have a couple of different skillets, you could of course have 2 going, or you could have a bigger skillet. Whatever works for you. So we're getting close, but in the middle it's still not completely done, so we're going to give it another minute or so. So some recipes you look at will say 1 to 2 minutes on each side. I seem to usually do maybe about 2 to 3 minutes on each side. But whatever works so that it's cooked in the middle but not burned on the outside. So probably in about 30 seconds here I'm going to take it off, put it on the plate, add some maple syrup, and that's how you make vegan pancakes. I hope you like it, and I hope you'll try it. Thanks for watching.